This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. So in last session, we discussed about the different arithmetic operators, logical operators, about all those things. So I recommend all of you to practice every day and understand. And if you have any questions, so make sure to ask your questions. Okay, so the basics are important. Once you know the basics, so you can write any kind of program. Okay. So now today, to make use of these relational operators and also the logical operators, mainly we use those things in the conditional statements. So there are different flavors of the conditional statement. So I'm going to explain so one after other. The simple if means, so when we write the program in the program, so maybe let me open the developer console. You need to click on gear icon, open developer console. Click on debug, open execute anonymous window. So here, so let's say I'm defining one of the variable integer. So let's say number 1 is equal to 20. So number 2 is equal to that, something like this. Okay, now I'm keeping one if condition. So the thing is, if the number 1 is greater than number 2, so then let's say I want to print something. Let's say system.debug inside if. This is what I'm going to print. But if you see number 1 is 20, 20 greater than 30, no, it won't execute. So when you execute this code, you don't see it is entered into this and print this. Okay, you don't see anything. Execute. See the debug, and you are not seeing anything. The reason is it is not meeting the condition. So let's say if I give like this, number 1 less than number 2, yes, 20 less than 30, it will enter inside and it will execute this statement. So basically this will be printing into the log. Okay, so just execute. Click on debug only, and if you see inside if, okay, so it is working. This is a simple if condition. This is maybe one of the example. Okay, so now say when we go with if else conditions. So let's say since this condition is not satisfied, since this statement, or you can also include any number of statements, right? So since the condition is not satisfied and it is not entered and it is not executing these statements, we want to execute some other set of statements. So that time we go with else. If the condition is not satisfied, then in else, let's say I want to print, I'll say inside else. Okay, so in case the condition is not satisfied, it will enter into else condition and execute the statements. Maybe for our demo, I'm including only one statement. There can be any number of statements. All those statements will be executed. So that's what will happen. So just execute and see. Executed. Click on debug only. Now if you see inside else, it's working. Okay, now just a copy and keeping here. This is the example of the if else. So else if, So when exactly we use else if? So let's say number 1 is greater than number 2. I'm checking. No, 20 greater than 30, not satisfied. I want to check for one more condition, right? Else if. So I want to verify both are same. Both are same. Number 1 is equal to number 2, right? So maybe I'll say inside else if. Like this, keep on. You can keep many else if conditions. Okay, so again, I can also check one more condition. So let's say first else if I'm taking one more, I'm checking one more condition. So is number 1 is greater than 10. But if this condition is not satisfied, it will execute this, right? Second else. Now here one point what we need to understand when we use if else like this, out of all these blocks, any one of the block will be executed. The meaning is, so let's say the number 1 is greater than number 2, it enter inside and execute. That's it. It will stop. It won't again execute the remaining blocks. Okay, so let's say in case of failure, number 1 greater than number 2, if it is false, it will check this one. Let's say if this is satisfied, this block of statements will be executed. It won't execute the remaining else if and else. Okay, so even though those are satisfied, it won't execute. So it will identify first condition which it meets, only that block it will execute. Okay, so that part we have to understand. Okay, so now as per this, we'll see this will be printed in the log. Right, let's execute. Click on debug only inside second else if, right? So it is executing. So this is the way. Okay, so now let me copy this, and I'm keeping that right here. That's one of the example. Okay, so now if series. So let's say one of the requirement is if multiple conditions are satisfied. So let's say even though this is, let's say this is satisfied, okay, and still this is also satisfied. I also want to execute both, right? So whatever the conditions satisfy, all those conditions, irrespective of whether this is satisfied, not satisfied, still it should check this. Still it should check this. So if you want like that, we take if series, right? We keep each condition one after other. This is if series. This is one of the example of the, right? So if series. Okay. Just understand about that. It's like that. Okay, so just maybe if we execute, anyway, this only is satisfied. But if you see, let's say, both are satisfied, right? Number 1, 20 less than 30 satisfied. Number 1, 20 greater than 10 satisfied. Both will be printed because this is a if series, right? So execute. And if you click on debug only, so we are seeing it is entered into both. So that is the if series. Okay? Just copy for your reference. So I'm keeping here, like this. And the next one, nested if. Okay. So nested if means if condition inside one more if condition. So we call as nested if. Okay. So let's say if So maybe let me write here. So let's say this condition and keeping inside one more condition. Right? So like this again, inside that I can keep one more condition. So this one we call as nested if. Okay, so first it will check the outer condition. If that is satisfied, it enter inside. And again we are checking if that is satisfied, it enter inside. So this kind of conditions on day-to-day people call as nested if. Right? So now let's execute again. As soon as the inner condition is also satisfied, you see it entered into both. Right? It entered into both, and we are seeing both. So this is one of the example of the nested if. Okay, so just for your reference, I am keeping this code here. So this is about the if conditions. By keeping conditions, how we can control executing the statements in a program. We use these conditional statements using if conditions. Okay, so just try to execute from your side and understand how it is behaving. Okay, so one of the next feature, right? Next topic about the loops. There is a requirement to execute the same statement again and again, multiple times, maybe 100 times, 1,000 times, 10,000 times, based on the requirement. So for that, we use this looping or controlling statements. So we have these different types of loops. So let's understand. Mostly we use for loop, but we should also know about other loops. Really, based on the need, we decide which is better. Okay. So here, so while condition, how it works. Okay. So for that, so I'm removing everything. So far, if you have any questions, we can ask. Okay. Now, so let's say this while condition. So in general, first we do the initialization. Okay. The loop variable. In general, loop variable we use as I, J, K, L like that. Okay. So maybe first when we start a loop, we give I. If there is an inner loop or if we are using multiple loops, we continue with J, K, L like that. So that is a standard. I'm also following the same standard. I'm taking integer I, default value, I'm giving 0. Right? This we call as initialization. Right? Initialization of a variable. So now while here we give the condition. Here whatever in this line we are going to is a condition. Like this I'm just keeping in comment. Right? So here condition I'm saying I less than 10 until I becomes 10 from 0 to 9. Total 10 times it will execute the loop. Right? So here the logic, whatever you want to keep the logic, and here increment or decrement, right? Increment or decrement based on the name. Okay, so this is required. If you forget this, system needs to execute this infinite times. In Salesforce, we have the limits for each and every development feature. Okay, so infinite is not acceptable. You'll see CPU time exceeded time, such kind of error. Okay, so maybe let me execute. Now the code, whatever we wrote, never ending. It will try to execute that infinite times. Infinite times is not supported. After a specific time, right? You will see one of the error at runtime, right? The runtime error. So maybe, right, in general, at the time of saving the program, whatever the errors we get, those we call as compilation errors. At runtime, after executing the code, at runtime, whatever the error we get, we call those as exceptions. Okay, now we are seeing one exception, system.limit exception. apex CPU time limit exceed, right? Because it's trying to execute infinite time. Okay, it's very dangerous if you forget to implement this, right? Forget to include the increment or decrement operator, right? So here in our example, we are going to increment the I value. Every time, right, first time 0 less than 10, enter inside, increment, it will be 1, 1 less than 10, inside and execute. And then now 2, 3, 4, once I becomes 10, 10 less than 10, it fails. Total 10 times it executes the logic. Okay, so make sure to have this one, don't miss this one, will be a problem. That may be here for us to understand. I'm printing system.debug. So I'm printing the value of the I. Now, if you see, it will be printing 0 to 9. Right? Total 10 times it will iterate. So when you execute, and I click on debug only. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, up to 9. Right? Not saying up to. So it is executing, right? 0 to 9 we are seeing in the debug. So total 10 times. So when we need to use decrement operator, okay, so maybe let me take one more loop. So integer. So since already we are using I, right, here I'm using J, right, 10. Now I want to print it in a reverse order, right, until J becomes 0, 10 to 1. I want to print. Okay, so now here I'm giving the condition as I is equal to 0. Until I becomes 0, this will be going to execute, right? So I'm printing this. Okay, so first time 10 is equal to 0, no, it will print it, and I am going to decrement, right? I minus minus. Now I becomes 9. 9 is equal to 0, no, it enters inside and execute. And until I becomes 0, it will stop. Total 10 to, right, 1. Those values it will print. Okay, so but here we are using J. Right?
Sir, I think we have to mention J, no? J minus minus.
Yeah, J.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here we are using J. So we need to go with J. Okay. So now let's execute and see. Okay, so now you see 0 to 9. I think why this is not printing. Let me execute one more time. So just I am clearing the existing logs. Okay, so clear log panel. So let me close these things.
Select the some little part, right, Srinu? Here we have to highlight the code to execute, right? Then it will only execute.
Yeah. So the thing is, the condition should satisfy, right? So
Okay.
now the reason why it is not executing. So I'm giving 0. N is equal to 0, then only it will enter inside, right? I suppose it to give like this. Okay. So 10 not equal to 0, yes. It will enter inside and execute decrement. Once J becomes 0, 0 not equal to 0, it will fail. That time it will stop. Okay. So the condition, there is a problem with the condition. Okay. So now let me execute. So now if you see, it is printed 10 to 1. Right? So in such a way, so we use loops to increment or decrement. So when we deal with the examples, when we take the requirement, that time finally we get to know exactly how we can work. Okay. For now, to know the basics, these things will be sufficient. Okay, that is about the while loop. So now, do while loop. Do while loop also similar to while loop. One slight difference is there. Maybe I don't want this now. So one of the differences. So now this is a while loop, right? So if I say I less than 0, will it execute? Right? I less than 0, is I less than 0? No. Right? You don't see anything executed, right? Execute and see. You don't see it is executing because the condition is not meeting. So when we use do while loop, when there is a need, if you want to execute all the statements present in the loop, at least for one time, and second time onwards, you want to check for the condition. In those situations, we go with the do. Okay, now here, all I am doing, I'm giving do, I'm giving this here, right? So now what happens? First time, without checking, it executes all the statements, and later it will check. Second time onwards, since the condition is not satisfied, right? So it won't execute. Okay, one time it will enter. Now you will see I value as 0, right? Execute. Okay, so click on debug only. Now if you see it is 0, right? So even though the condition is not satisfied, it enters. So, but if the condition is true, exactly how while loop works in the same. Right now, if I give like this, what will happen? First time the condition meets, so it will print 0 to 9, similar to while loop how it was printed in the same. Right? Now, if you execute, you will see the difference when the condition did not meet. The condition is satisfied. Exactly while loop how we see the result, same thing you will see. Okay, so that's about the do while loop. Right? So just copy, keep it for your reference. So that's it. So and also the next type of loop, so for loop. So there are two flavors of for loop. So one is index based for loop and for each loop. So index based for loop, most of the times we use this. How exactly that will work? So I'm going to show. Okay, now, so here maybe to avoid the vision, I'm just closing everything. Now here the syntax is for here itself initialization, condition, increment, decrement, everything. Here in the same expression we have to give. Here I am giving integer I equal to 0, I less than 10, I plus plus. Okay, so now I want to print it. This is just to print from 0 to 9. So now how exactly this will work? This part will execute only one time. Right? One time this will be executed. So I value is 0. So next it will execute this one. Okay, so 0 less than 10 as 10 does and it will execute. After that it will execute this. After that it will again check the condition. If satisfied, again it will execute. Okay, so that's what will happen, right? So first this part will be executed. Next this part will be executed. After that, this will be executed. After that, this will check for this condition. I mean, it will increment the value. So later again, it will check for this condition. And if it is satisfied, again, it will execute this one. Again, it will check for this. Again, right? It will increment and it will check. And so like that, keep on. Only this part will execute only one time. The remaining part until the condition fail, keep on in this order, it will execute. Okay. So that's what will happen. So just understand about that. So now if you execute, you'll see 0 to 9. Right, it is printed. It's about the for loop. Okay. Index based means we are going based on the index. There is one more flavor for each. So for that, we should know about one concept called collections. Okay, so maybe to explain this, I'm just taking some freedom to define a collection and explain. But for now, maybe you might not understand what is that. We have one of the upcoming topic called collections. That time you'll understand more. Okay. So in general, to understand easily, so far, let's say if you want to store the integer value, so what we are doing? We are doing integer and maybe some number, whatever you want, you are storing. Right? If you want two numbers, number 2. If you want 100 numbers, 100 variables defining is very difficult and manage. Right? So same type of data, if you want to hold in 100 or 1000 or 10,000, those many values, we go with the collections. Okay. So, but that is an upcoming topic in detail you can understand in future. So here I'm just defining one collection of the type integer. Okay. For now, don't bother about the syntax. Going forward, I'll explain. Okay. For now, just I'm taking some just for our demo purpose. I'm keeping some values. So why I am giving like this, you will understand when we complete a topic called collections. So for now, this is a list which is holding multiple integer values. So now I want to iterate over each and every element. Okay, so for each loop, how it works. So maybe since we are saying for each, people say we use for each keyword. Okay, that is not true. So here, right side, what is the name of the collection? Right here, number list. What is the data type of this collection? Integer. Integer is the data type of the collection. So here we give some name as a developer, whatever you feel meaningful, we give that name. This we decide as a developer. So now each time, first time the number is 100, second time the number is 300, third time 400, right? Fourth time 500. After that there are no numbers. It won't iterate, right? So that's what will happen. Okay, so just understand about that. Okay, now system.debug and just printing. Okay, this we call as for each loop. This syntax for now, no need to worry. Okay, so let me show you how this will give the result. Just executing, you will see each and every number will be printed. After numbers are over, it will stop the iteration. You see here, so we are saying 100, 300, 400, and 500. Okay, so now, so this is working. Okay? This is the way. That's it. These are the different loops we have, and based on the need, we use these loops. And just have the basic understanding like this, so that it will be good when we see some Apex programs. So that time you can easily recognize why people are writing like that. Okay. Now one of the last type, input or output statements. This one for now I cannot explain more. So mainly these things we deal when we develop a web page and we have a page. For now, right? So we have three layers, right? So UI, user interface. Next level, business logic. When we interact with the user interface internally, it executes some logic. Apex is under the business logic category, right? So for us, still we need to discuss about the UI. That time we'll understand more about this. For now, as a developer, to know a few things. So we say set, right? Going forward, when I say set, the meaning of that one is input. To allow input, we use set one of the keyword. To allow output, we use one of the keyword called get. Okay, so these things going forward, you will understand. Okay, set and get. So just understand about that. Okay, so for now, if you understand all these things, I think we are good with the basics, and we'll discuss about the next topic. So for any questions, so far whatever we discussed on that. So any questions, anyone?
Hello.
Hello?
Uh, don't we have case statement?
Sorry?
Case statement.
Yes, we have. So here we have case instead of case. Here we call as switch when. Okay, one of the other conditional statement. So to avoid confusion, right? So I'm explaining basics. Someone is from non-technical background. This itself they feel complex, right? So I'm not explaining. So without that also we can proceed and achieve any kind of requirement. Okay. So exactly case is not there, but we have one conditional type of statement, switch when. Okay. That will this.
Srinu, can you explain about conditional statements once again?
Conditional statement, we have if conditions, right? So the purpose of the conditional statement is to control. Sometimes we don't want to execute some set of statements unless there is some condition meets. So we give condition like this. Inside that, maybe here for demo purpose, I'm writing only one statement. There can be 100 lines or 200 lines. Okay, those lines will be executed only the condition whatever we are checking here, if that is satisfied. Okay, this is a simple if condition. Right, again, if the condition is not satisfied, again there is a requirement to execute some other set of statement. So that time we go with this if else. If the condition is satisfied, it execute the statements inside if. Not satisfied, it execute the statements inside else. That's what will happen. Sometimes there will be the requirements. If one condition is not satisfied, they want to check one more condition, one more condition, one more condition. Right? When you have like that, we use else if. If this condition failed, it will check this. If this condition failed, it will check this. If this is satisfied, it will execute. Right? If none of this satisfied, it will execute this. Okay, so in those use cases, we use else if. And if series, so let's say whether this statement, this condition is satisfied or not satisfied, they don't want to bother. Keep on, they want to check maybe 5 or 10 different conditions. As soon as those are satisfied, it should execute. So that time we keep all if conditions one after other, right? So other type, maybe to execute some inside conditions. First level, the outer condition, this should satisfy. Again, later, again, based on some need, again, we are taking one more condition. So when you give like this, people say nested. Okay, already we executed and so we saw the results. how this will behave. So that's the purpose. Okay. So any other questions?
Sir,
So
whatever
really,
we are giving,
yeah.
hello. Sir, what
Yes.
we are writing in the system.debug in the brackets, in that parenthesis, we are writing what the result we want to see in the log.
Correct.
System.
So
Okay.
if you want, that is not a matter what you are giving, right? This is for our developer purpose, for testing, right? For testing. So what
Okay.
exactly I want to see, I'm printing.
Okay.
So if you want to type something else to recognize, you can type whatever you want.
Okay.
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 This is just as a developer to print some message in the log.
Okay. Okay.
Any other questions? Okay.
Do
Yeah. Yes.
when conditions fails, you give. Please explain with one example, sir.
When condition fails,
No, means you explained about the when condition is getting failed, how the do well will react. Please show us, sir.
okay, already I executed and I showed you, right? Now if you see, this is a do while. Okay. Now I'm having I value as 0 here, right? And here I have a condition. If I value is less than 0. So, but I value is here 0. Is 0 less than 0? No, right? Condition is not meeting. Even though the condition is not meeting, you will see it will enter inside and we'll see that 0 is printed. Maybe let me do like this. Let's say I is 100. 100 less than 0? No. Right? Still it will enter inside and print that 100. Right? So that's the behavior of the do while. So here, right, 100 less than, no, it's not satisfied. But one time all the statements will be executed. You will see it will be entering inside the block and it will be printing 100. Right? Like that. Okay. So the practical examples, when we take the requirements, so that time automatically we will see how, which one we need to use, all those things. Okay. So any
That
other
means
questions?
do while works whether the condition is satisfied or not. It will again repeat iterated one more time or until the condition gets satisfied.
Yeah. So condition satisfied or not satisfied, one time it is guaranteed to execute all the statements. Right?
Okay.
Even though condition is not satisfied, it executes all the statements one time. Okay, that's the purpose. Okay. So now to see, so about our understanding, right? We discussed about different types of the statements. I'll show some programs and see whether we are able to understand those programs. So different statements present in those programs. Okay. So now, so here in my blog, so there are a few sample programs. Yes, I'm opening. So let's say this one. Return Fibonacci series. Okay, there is a format for Fibonacci series. As soon as you know the formula for it, we can develop a code. We can develop the code. Here, if you see, so you can maybe for now don't need to bother about the first two lines. So that we are going to discuss in our next topic as part of the OOPS concepts, object-oriented programming concepts. Okay, look into these statements. Okay, so now what is this statement? They are defining a variable, memory statement. One of the string variable is defined and the default value is assigned to that string variable, right? And also integer. So total 3 variables and all the variables. So maybe 2 variables they are assigning with 0, 1 variable they are assigning with 1. Now we see this is index based for loop. For I equal to 0, I less than. So here number will be provided as an input at runtime. So we'll see how we do like this going forward. So let's say number is 10. 10 times it will enter inside, right? So here they are storing 0 plus 1 first time, right? 0 plus 1. So after that they are switching the values, right? F1 they are keeping F1 as 1 and F2 as the next number, right? So here whatever they added again 1. So the final result, the next number they are appending to this Fibonacci series, right? So like that. So finally when you execute and see, so we'll see the result like this, okay, based on the number. So what we give. Okay, so already we know, right? All these types we know. This is memory statement, this is memory statement, this is index based for loop. So this one arithmetic operator they are using, they are assigning assignment operator. This is arithmetic assignment operator, right? So let me open one more program. This is one more program. And here this is memory statement, one of the Boolean variable. Here we are seeing if condition, right? This is conditional statement. Maybe math.mod, these things going forward we'll see. But this is one condition equal to relational operator. So I think they have two conditions. Or logical operator. Any one of these two conditions satisfied, enter inside and make is true value as true. Right? So here conditional statement thing we are seeing. Okay. So let me open one more program. So here, right? So we are seeing doing some arithmetic operations, right? Swapping a number. There are two numbers. How to swap two numbers? So that one. Okay. So system.debug already we know to print in the log. Okay, so now when you see some programs, you can recognize the statements based on what we discussed so far. You get to know what to want. Now the next thing what we need to discuss, for all these statements are inside this. So what is this? Again, on top of that, this is there. What is that? Right? So those things we have to understand. For that, we have to know about the OOPS concepts, object-oriented programming concepts. So we are going to start with that. Okay. So now, so I'll say OOPS. Right? Full form is object-oriented programming concepts. Okay. So now, as part of this, the first one, encapsulation. Encapsulation is one of the OOPS concepts. The next one, abstraction. The next one, polymorphism. Yeah, really, on day-to-day, no need to bother about these things. Already, if you know the programming, since we are understanding newly, so obviously, if you know these concepts, your basics will be very strong, and you will become a strong developer. Okay, so we should aware of this inheritance. So these are the different OOPS concepts. So now, what is encapsulation? So what is abstraction? All these things we have to understand, right? So maybe before we understand those things, so just I want to explain. So let's say we have a program. Okay, for now, we don't know how program starts. Let's say program will be inside a block. Let's say we have a program. In the program, mostly, so what are the major elements we include? To hold the data, whatever we input, or after doing calculation to store the result, we have to define the memory statements. Right? We have to define the variables. Right? Variables is one of the key element when we deal with the program. And also to do, let's say I'm supplying two numbers. So what do you want to do with those two numbers? Do you want to add or subtract or multiply or divide or do some other calculation? So for that, right, to do a specific action. Okay, so maybe two numbers based on the need. Sometimes, so there is a need to perform addition. Sometimes there is a need to perform subtraction. Right. So the each action here technically in the OOPS concepts we call as method. We write a method for each action. Let's say add. We write one method. Right. So here method means reusable action. Okay, so technically we call as method. Method is a reusable logic. Again and again. Right? If we have different two numbers, we call that method and again for different numbers. Same logic we call repeatedly and see the different results. Right? So mainly within a program, you see these elements. So these we call as right program elements, the elements in a program. Even there are a few more. When we start writing a basic program, I'll explain. Okay. So now just understand in a program we see some elements. One of the example variables, those are some elements. Actions, the methods are the elements. Few more we'll discuss going forward. So now, so what is encapsulation? What's the definition of the encapsulation? So encapsulation, it holds the elements in a program together. So that is encapsulation. Okay, so we have variables, we have methods, right? How it is holding together in a block like this, it can hold, and so we say we use a keyword saying system will identify that we are starting a program. Because the main purpose of the encapsulation is to hold the elements in a program together into one single unit. So we use encapsulation maybe on day-to-day to understand. Okay, you want to understand in the day-to-day example. So let's say, you know, TV, right? So when we see TV, so what we see in TV, there are many different elements inside the TV. We don't bother about seeing everything, right? So first of all, to make it as one unit, right? So all those parts they'll combine and they'll fix with the screws. Finally, they keep a dome, and finally we see as one single piece, one TV, right? So like that. So encapsulation will wrap multiple elements together as a single unit, right? As a single unit is called encapsulation. Okay. So now again here we have a keyword for encapsulation, class and interface. So we can encapsulate by using a class or interface. So what is the difference? I'll explain. Okay. So you see keywords, you see class, and you see interface. Okay. When we use class, when we use interface, slowly we'll understand. For now, first we need to know about the class. So what is the class? A class, so on day-to-day to understand, it is a plan. Okay? So to do anything, we should have a plan. So let's say there is a need to construct a building. So directly without any plan, no one start doing the construction. First, we go to engineer and get the plan, how it should be, right? So the exact plan, how we want as per the requirement. So we get the plan. By seeing the plan, the building will be constructed, right? So let's say car, right? So how the car will be manufactured? First, they'll finalize the plan, and by seeing the plan, they will construct hundreds of thousands of cars. Right? Anything if you want, we need a plan. So class is a plan. Okay, so not more than that. So when you say the plan of the building is ready, that's not the meaning that the building is ready. Right? Just a plan is ready. The building should be constructed by using objects like bricks, cement. Few people need to work and construct. Then you will see the physical existence of a plan. What you are seeing in the paper, that will be physically we'll see after constructing. Right? In the same way, first we plan. That means we write the class. But when you write the class, nothing will happen. Right? So we need to create the object for the class and execute the plan. Then only we see the result. Okay? So just understand. So we write when exactly that will be utilized. When we create the object, that time the plan will be utilized. Right? When we create the object, we have to say the object is for which class. And as per that plan, it will execute and gives the result. So if you want to compare with the day-to-day example like that, we have to understand. Okay. So now that is a class. So simply, so we'll say it's a plan. Right? So to execute, we have to create the object. Right? So let's say there is a building plan. How many buildings we can construct? As soon as the measurement of the place is same, by using the same plan, we can construct multiple buildings. That means multiple objects. Here also same thing. We create a class, and we can call the class logic, the plan again and again by creating the multiple objects. Right? Class is nothing until you create the object and the call. Then that we will see once we write the program. If I show practically, for sure you will understand. Okay. So high level, before we start the program. So this basics we have to know. Now before we start writing a program, we are almost ready to create a simple program. Before to that, one of the small other concept, abstraction. Right? Abstraction. The meaning of the abstraction is it controls the visibility. Right? Abstraction controls the visibility of elements in a program. Right? The element can be variable or method, all those things. Right? So we have different keywords here. We have private, protected. I'll explain what is that protected, all those things. Protected, public, global, like this. Right? Now maybe on day-to-day example, how we need to understand. Let's say TV. I told that TV is, we see TV as one single unit, but internally inside that there are many elements combined. Finally, we'll see the TV. So now in TV, only few things we see to outside. Right? What we see the main thing, monitor, and maybe back side of the TV outside we see to input the HDMI cable or to input the plug. All those things we see because we need to input and we need to control accessing the TV. Right? So the thing is, what we can show, all those things are controlled. So maybe few things we see to outside. Right? So again, when you open the dome of the TV, immediately you will see a few things. But again, few more things if you want to see. Again, we need to maybe open one more. Inside that again you see a few more elements like that. Right? So actually there is a control on what we see. Right? So that can be achieved using this abstraction. So which level of visibility you want to give? So all those things we control through the abstraction. So maybe let me create the class so that you will understand how exactly this will work. Okay. So now let's write a class. For that, go to Salesforce. So already, if you don't have account, this is the place you need to register. Okay. Especially some of you, if you join newly directly for the development. Okay. Sign up and follow the instructions. You'll have the account. So once we log in, so there are different places where we create the Apex class. We are going to create the Apex class. So one way, once you log in and click on setup left side, search for Apex class. Here you can create the Apex class. This is one place. So one more place, the developer console. You can open the developer console. From here, file, new Apex class. From here also you can create. Or if you are more interested to use some external tools, there is a tool called Visual Studio Code, which is from Microsoft and which is open source. But by default, our Salesforce development is not supported in this tool. We have to install a extension called Salesforce. Right, so extensions pack we have to install. Okay, that maybe slowly I'll explain. Okay, we have different ways. For now, I'll create here and show you few examples. I'll create here and show you. Slowly later, I'll also show you how we can install this directly with this tool, how we can interact with our Salesforce organization and sync up with that code. Okay, so all those things. So we will be discussing. So and also one of the primary question, since people are starting newly. So if I create here, will it available here? Right. So it will be available. Right. It's not a matter where you are creating. These are just interfaces, the places where you can do the job. Right. So once we create either through developer console or from here or from VS Code, so all our Apex classes also stores in. So one of the table called Apex class. Okay. So internally Salesforce maintains a standard object called Apex class. Into that, all the classes whatever we create will store. Okay. So just understand these are some places where we create. But if you create here, this will be available here also. If you create here, it will be available here also. Right? So that is the just understanding you have to know. So since we don't have time, so what we do in our next session, so we are going to create one of the Apex class. Right? To do, we are going to create a Apex class. Right? Create Apex class. Before ending today, right? We do this on Monday. Our sessions are from Monday to Friday. Right? So before ending today, any questions, anyone? Okay. Okay, so we'll continue on Monday. So with today we are done with the demo sessions. If some of you, if you are joining newly, or the existing students, So if you want to continue with the development, so you need to pay the fee and continue. Okay, so before the next Monday session, so I will drop one email about the details. You can check that email and try to do the payment. And yeah, for today, whatever the notes and recording, I'll share as usual. And there is a change in the meeting link, right? So automatically, once I update the fee in my application, we'll get the meeting link. So Monday morning, we'll get the meeting link. You can check that and you can join the meeting. Okay, thank you.